The new linebacker signing for the Philadelphia Eagles this year could be the primary starter, and Vic Fangio is hiding it from us. I want to kind of break down the linebacker position a little bit and go through some of the things that Fangio did say. We did go over the press conference, but there are some things that I cannot let go of, and we really need to dive in a little deeper. So let's get into it.
Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yo, what's going on, guys? I hope everyone's having a fantastic day today. So I'm going to go over some news for the Philadelphia Eagles as usual. Okay, now the linebacker position, obviously going into last year in 2023, the Eagles kind of said, you know what, we have NCO Dean, like we don't have to worry about anything. Okay, so obviously it didn't work out. The availability of NCO Dean is probably one of the things that we're still questioning, if he has talent, no talent. But being injured 3 times in 1 year didn't help him as a player, but didn't help how the Eagles went into panic mode and went after this linebacker to this linebacker to that linebacker, Shaquille Leonard, this one, that one. I mean, the Eagles just kept trying to hit, free agency nonstop to try to get somebody in the building. Okay, so going to this year, okay, now we had the Vic Fangio press conference, obviously, and there's definitely a lot to talk about. I understand we did go over it, but between the linebacker position, what Vic Fangio thinks, and realistically, I'm just going to say this. Who is Vic Fangio's Andrew Van Ginkel type signing? Okay, because Andrew Van Ginkel was like a nobody for 3 years. I would say for 2 years, really. He was an okay role player for a couple years. 3rd year, he started to, pan out a little bit. And then his last year with the Dolphins under Vic Fangio, 53, 54 pressures, 6 sacks. So he likes to attack with his linebackers. There's going to be times they're in covers. There's going to be times they go after the QB, shooting the gaps. And I felt like with Andrew Van Ginkel, he would have been a big possibility as a big signing for the Eagles because he was very successful under Vic Fangio. And he signed with I think he signed with the Vikings, and the contract really wasn't that big. But we all know the Eagles don't put money into this position. So you go out in the draft, you draft Jeremiah Trotter Jr., so you have at least NCO Dean and Jeremiah Trotter Jr., that you have guys on multiple years. But like I said, I'm rooting for Jeremiah Trotter Jr., rooting for NCO Dean, but adding more free agents to the mix really made things a little bit more serious, because the first player that Vic Fangio did talk about, was Zack Bonum. Now, Zack Bonum obviously, was a edge rusher, transitioned to a, off-ball defensive end, off-ball, outside linebacker. So, and really hasn't played hasn't really dropped in coverage too much in his career until like the middle to the end with the Saints last year. He had a couple picks. But he did say Vic Fangio did favor him to be the inside linebacker. He said that at the press conference. So when you hear like a coordinator kind of talk about a name immediately, they kind of really feel high on that guy. The last 2 names he really talked about was really NCO Dean and Trotter, because, they have, Trotter's a late round pick, and NCO Dean is a 3rd round pick that really needs to be available and really show up to this offseason program and get better and see him healthy. And that's the number one thing. Zack Bonum, between his coverage, shooting the gap, and being an edge rusher on top of it, has a really nice balance to him. And I feel like Vic Fangio is doing things behind the scenes, or knowing certain things, because, like I said, these coordinators in general, they're not going to give us the answers we want. They're not going to, they're not going to tell us anything. All right. They don't want to give out their hand when it comes to what they're going to do in the regular season. I mean, you know what I mean? So there's going to be a lot of plays and a lot of things that are up these coaches' sleeves most of the time. And when you have a guy like Zack Bonum, or he talks about a guy like Zack Bonum that's only here on a 1-year deal, but thinks that they could turn him into something, or thinks that they seen something in the middle to the end of last year where they can kind of build off of that, then I think that's kind of the direction they kind of want to go with some of these guys. Okay. And he talked about Zack Bonum, talked about obviously Devin White, as well. Devin White's another player that the Philadelphia Eagles are, thinking that they could, kind of put his career back on track because, unfortunately, Devin White was not just unfortunately, he's been wanting out of Tampa Bay the last couple of years. He hasn't lived up to the 4th, 5th overall pick. And to be honest with you, I feel like every time the Eagles sign somebody, if they're not an all-pro, they're washed. They're not an all-pro, they suck. Or, that's just what it is. That's the trend. Every time the Eagles pick up a linebacker. I know Eagle fans are sick and tired of the Eagles picking up, leftover pieces from other teams. The Eagles want to, fans want to draft a linebacker early, in the early rounds and produce a guy that's a little bit of high capability, at least more of a higher talent that you can work off of than getting a guy like Trotter Jr. that's in the late rounds. And why did he go to the late rounds? You know what I mean? But I'm rooting for all of these guys, Devin White especially, that can really turn his career around, I think, in general. I think, I think he's the best athletically, and I think as a linebacker in general, I think Devin White is the best and is the best linebacker we have on our team right now. And Vic Fangio says we want to get him on the right track. So they feel like they can uplift him a little bit, and that's a really good thing. If you want to look at guys like, Orton Burks, that's a backup linebacker, veteran guy for the San Francisco 49ers, and has had a lot of starting experience as well in an off-ball coverage type thing too, because he could cover and he could shoot the gap as well. So, like I said, we're only looking at things from afar because it is too early right now. It is too early. But is Nakobe Dean and, is Nakobe Dean, is Jeremiah Trotter Jr. going to step up? Can Jeremiah Trotter Jr. get past Nakobe Dean? Nakobe Dean's got an uphill battle now because there's a lot more competition in front of him this year than there was last year, and then tried to have time to come back, play a game, barely that, and then got hurt again. So, you look at guys that, the Eagles, especially Vic Fangio, had produced in Miami, like Andrew Van Ginkel, and I say his name because he was really a nobody when he really just, not a nobody, but he was more of a role player, and he became a force to be reckoned with. Every time I turned the Miami Dolphins on last year, his name was said every single play because he's just a sideline type running back that's making tackles nonstop, shooting the gap, being disruptive, the most pressures on that Miami defense. And, the Miami Dolphins were ranked 3rd in pressures, going, after the season. So I think Fangio does have a plan here regarding the linebacker position, that's obvious. But I think a lot of us are dogging it. I think, we're looking for that linebacker trade that I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Eagles are going to roll with what they have. Unless they have a couple injuries, you have draft picks next year, then yeah, you make a trade or something like that. But I think there's a lot more to this than looking at it and just saying, oh, they have nobody at linebacker. Does it hurt to add another linebacker through trade? I guess not. But for myself, my own opinion, I feel like they should try and see what they have, because Devin White is definitely Devin White. I think is gonna be great. I think Devin White needs just a new background, new team, and that's what he needed. Whatever happened last year with his benching, and I know he got hurt in the Eagles game early in the season. The first time we faced Tampa Bay, I know he got hurt, and then it seemed like after that he was out for a few weeks, and then they just decided not to play him. So I think there's a lot of chips on the shoulders, and plus with Devin White as well. I think, he's a big leader. He's got a big voice. If you guys don't know, Devin White brings it between Chauncey and Devin White, and a lot of high characters, high personalities in this room. I'm actually excited for, maybe Zack Bonum of what, they could kind of turn him into something. The only bad thing about this group this year is that if Nakobe Dean or Jeremiah Trotter Jr. don't do anything this season, and the only people that have done well are the ones that are on one-year deals like Devin White and Zack Bonum and Orton Burks, kind of sucks, because then what if multiple linebackers play well? Then you have to, there's got to be a re-sign candidate at the end of this year. I would rather, look, you drafted a linebacker this year. I'm happy they drafted Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I'm glad NCO Dean is still here, okay? But it wouldn't hurt after the season if one of these linebackers, because obviously getting rid of TJ Edwards was one of the biggest mistakes that they have made. Biggest mistakes. Undrafted, shown promise with Schwartz, flashed with Schwartz. We wanted him to play more. He never did. And obviously, later in time, he had more snaps and played really well for us and is balling out in Chicago, okay? I don't want the Eagles to make that mistake again, but with that Titans coach, Bobby King, okay? That Bobby King linebackers coach, I think he's going to make a huge difference. He's developed Pro Bowl linebackers in Tennessee, okay? One that just got signed big money in free agency. I forgot his name. He's got a long name. So what they have hired at the linebacker position is an experienced coach. I don't know how many years, but it's definitely over 10 years he's been a linebacker coach. So what Vic Fangio has hired in his staff is, like I said, for the millionth time, quote unquote, experience. So I think one of the top positions to definitely be excited for going into the mini camp in June, and obviously then training camp, is linebacker. And just seeing how Fangio is going to use some of these guys and which guy is going to really ball out. And I'm excited for the young guys, NCO Dean and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. And then you have these one-year deal type guys that Howie Roseman brought in. And hopefully to God, if they play well, or at least one of them plays fantastic, they don't just lose them after this season. Especially since, Vic Fangio will be here for a few years or longer. Doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. So that's all I really have to talk about. Want to kind of talk about the linebacker position, who he mentioned at the press conference immediately. So maybe it gives you a stint of, it could be nothing. This could be nothing at all. This is just speculation. This is just me saying, seems like he's really excited about this player because he mentioned him first. So we kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt there. So that's all I really want to talk about with Vic Fangio, the linebacker core. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about what we already have. And he's going to push these players, guys. And as a coach that's been significantly well with his defenses, a scheme that I'm not a huge fan of, but willing to see how he's going to push these guys, how hard these guys practice, and we need the linebacker core to be stat. Because the secondary is loaded. It is loaded. Get this linebacker core right. Get these guys coached up right. The last piece of the puzzle to this situation is coaching, unfortunately. We can kill in free agency. We can kill in the draft. But when it comes down to it, in reality, it's the coaching. But if you guys haven't liked the video, please like the video. If you guys haven't subscribe to the channel. I can't talk tonight. You guys have a fantastic day. And if you guys haven't checked out, the Philly Shakedown podcast merch, the Howie Big Pimpin' shirt, definitely check it out. Pre-orders are available. 6XLs are available now. And we're going to have a lot more coming out. We're going to have a double drop of merch in probably a couple weeks. So other than that, I'll see you guys on the next one. Shakes, what up, follow side. Peace out, guys. Peace.